We all like routines. It makes us feel safe and secure and more confident because we know what's coming up.
How do I transition to telling them, hey, it's bedtime, and they just jump into action on their own?
You don't address everything in day one. That's ridiculous. What you're doing is you're trying to avoid a scene. You want them to do the right thing so you don't have to deal with it. I don't do that. I make sure kids know what's expected of them. That's why I never told my kids what to do. They already knew what was expected of them. It's never about the kids. We're never fixing kids here. We're fixing and teaching parents. It's about pride too. What have your kids got to be proud of?
Which routines do you suggest parents get in place?
Welcome to the Bratbusters Parenting Podcast. My name's Lisa Bunnage. I'm a parenting coach. I'm a mom. I'm also a grandmother.
And I'm Amy Bunnage, Lisa's daughter, and I handle the marketing and planning here at Bratbusters. While I don't have kids, each episode will dive into parenting topics and Lisa will answer your questions. Let's get started.
Okay, sweetie, what is on for today's topic? What are you laughing at? We haven't even started.
Because we were just getting frustrated with technology and then, okay, sweetie.
We're just like, okay, I can't get this done. You told me to swipe down. And she said, try swiping up and it worked. Why didn't you tell me to swipe up in the first place?
And then, okay, sweetie.
Okay, sweetie, what are we talking about today?
So today is the power of routines and how daily structure helps kids thrive.
Such a good one.
I'm glad you like this topic.
I like this one.
So let's start off with why you think routines are so important.
We all like routines. We like to know what days we're working, when we're going to work, except when you work for yourself and it's set 24/7. But generally, we like to know what's coming. We like some things in life to be predictable. Surprises are fun, but you think about it, do you really want a surprise party every single day? You might, but I wouldn't. I don't want them ever, actually. I don't like surprises. But we like to know what's coming. It makes us feel safe and secure and more confident because we know what's coming up. We're thrown off by things that aren't structured. It's more challenging.
You've talked about that before, and I think you brought up a good point where you said it's surprises about the bad things that we don't like. We like surprises about the good things usually.
And even then, you look at people with a surprise party. I would hate it, by the way. It's not you would hate it too. Mm-hmm. We both would hate a surprise. You look at that person. They're usually the person in the room having the least amount of fun. It's usually everybody else is thrilled. Surprise! And the surprise. Oh, my hair isn't done. I haven't. Oh God, I got to go to the bathroom. It's all
depends.
It depends, yeah. Well, no, you're saying you're supposed to wear Depends so that if you do have to go to the bathroom in case you pee yourself, because those are a form of diaper.
I know, but we shouldn't be promoting any specific products.
I'm not. Anyway, my point is we all like routines and structure. We like to know what's coming. The odd surprise in life is great. Hey kids, we're going to Disneyland. Yay, that's great. But hey kids, tonight you're going to bed at 7 instead of 9. Not so good.
So which routines do you suggest parents get in place?
School morning routine, bedtime routine, and mealtime routine. Those are the big three. You can also have chore routine, but they're not always as easily structured because you can't always do chores at the same. You should have like make your bed, but that's part of morning routine. But yeah, mealtime, bedtime, school morning routine.
What about after school?
After school routine, gee, that's a hard one because it really depends on what your schedule's like. Okay, a lot of people, like we had something going on pretty much every single day, but it was different every day, but it was the same every week, right? So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we couldn't have the same routine after school Monday through Friday at all.
I remember because I did competitive dance, I would be downing those 2-minute noodles in the car.
I had to get something into her on the way from school. We had to race to get to dance, get her in her outfit. Would you get dressed in the car? I think you did.
Not when you were driving, but we definitely had to, it was a race against the clock.
It really was. I always say I hate junk food, but you got to do what you got to do. Shove those noodles in her. They went down. They slipped right down her. And she was ready for dance. So, but yeah, we were off and racing around. It was always her. Your brother wasn't as into being into like extracurricular activities. He's not as joiner like you were. You were the one every single day. What am I doing today? You love being scheduled.
I still do.
You love it. You love, you're a time blocker. You like your whole day filled up with stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not. Your brother and I aren't like that as much.
Now, we do have some questions, but I think it might be helpful. Can you give examples of what should be in a mealtime routine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's usually, I was going to say the top 3. I don't have a top 3, so I better not set that up.
Let's not set that expectation.
The top 3. Oh, shoot. Now I got to come up with 3 things. Well, one of them is you come to the table within 5 minutes of being asked to do so. So if you say, okay, so 5 minutes and then we're going to be seated for dinner. So you set a timer. That's the first one. The second one is don't get up during the meal. And the third one is, oh, there are top three. The third one is put your dishes in the dishwasher before you leave the kitchen. And you always have it like timed. So dinner starts in 5 minutes, not dinner's ready. Or you see what I mean? You want to give them a little bit of warning and you want to have a timer. So as soon as that timer goes up, they've got time to go to the bed, to pee, to wash their hands and get to the table in that 5 minutes. And also and then sitting down, they can't get up during a meal. And there's actually four things. No devices or toys at the dinner table. That's just time to eat and you're sitting around together, you're telling stories, you're laughing. We used to sit and connect. That was our fun time. We literally would just sit and chat throughout meals, and that will really take you through the teen years too. Also, the last one is also timed, because when I say put your dishes in the dishwasher or in the sink or on the counter, wherever you want, so put your dishes away, whatever, before you leave the kitchen. So that's timed. They can't just leave the kitchen then come back and do it at midnight. Well, I did it. It has to be done before you leave the kitchen or before you leave wherever, the dining room or something. But anyway.
And then as far as before mealtime, you wouldn't be getting them set up on a new level of a game right before you're telling them to go have to.
Well, they kind of know. And I would say, I used to say to my kids, my son, he was really into gaming. And I said, don't start a new game because we're going to be having dinner soon. So he'd say, okay, thanks, Mom. It was no big deal. But I wouldn't, actually, to be honest, if he'd started a new level and he was right in the middle of it and dinner was on the table, I would have let him finish. Because they were such polite kids. Like I just would have said, oh, I understand. So
you have rules, but you're fair and reasonable.
I'm very fair and reasonable. But if I hadn't warned him, or if dinner was earlier than expected, or even if it was on time, but he was just so into his levels, I would have let it slide for sure.
Now, are you
by the way, that's that mutual respect. I earned that. He respected me and I respected him. That's why that worked so well. But when you're trying to get respect, when you're setting yourself up as the leader, I wouldn't suggest that. Don't have exceptions. You stick to the rules when you're first learning how to get respect. Once you've got it, then you can fudge anything. Hey, let's stay up till 10 tonight eating popcorn and watching movies. Nothing matters because you're the leader. They respect you and they don't fight you when you say, okay, off to bed now.
Now, are you just saying this mealtime routine? Are you writing it down? How does that look?
Okay, you put down on the behavior board, which is completely free. It's like a mini course. Check out my website, bratbusters.com, and you get the behavior board. And the kids' rule is follow mealtime routine. Good questions, by the way. You ask really good questions. Anyway, so you put down follow mealtime routine. Now you can just do this potentially with dinner because breakfast is on the go often. You're racing around. Lunch, they might be at school. So this can just be around dinner. It could just be follow dinner routine, whatever you want to do, whatever suits your family. But then underneath the behavior board, you put a little card or something and you tape it on there. And that has the rules of mealtime routine. Come to the table within 5 minutes, no toys or devices, don't get up. And then, I'm going to add something else here too. And then put your dishes in the dishwasher before you leave. Also, duplicate that card and put it in front of each kid. They're learning how at the table. They're learning how to do this. So you want a reminder, have it folded in half, so it sits upright in front of them. So it's a reminder of the routine, especially the not getting up. If you've got kids that are used to jumping up and down, I got a few things to add to this, by the way. If you've got kids that are used to jumping up and down, they need that visual reminder to sit still. And you don't keep reminding them. Allow them to make the mistake, okay? That's what I was going to add. You don't stop them from making mistakes. Don't stop them from getting up. You discuss it after dinner. So once they've left the kitchen, they got up, they didn't put their dishes away, you say, okay, let's go to the behavior board. And they know at that point that they messed up. Oh, I'll put my dishes away now. Never mind. Let's go to the behavior board. And there's no anger in any of this. Say, remember the rule is follow mealtime routine. That didn't happen because you got up and you didn't put your dishes away. So here's the consequence for that. The other thing I was going to add to this is if your kids are used to eating around the house, they have that freedom. They actually can eat around the house or on the couch, which I think is gross. My kids were never allowed to eat anywhere except the table. So they didn't know any different. To them, they would not have walked away. Like to them, getting up during a meal would be weird because this just wasn't done. So if you're inconsistent and you allow them to eat breakfast or lunch around the house, walking around with a sandwich or something, how can you expect them to sit for dinner? I think that's unreasonable. So I do think it should be more consistent, but it doesn't have to be like within 5 minutes or maybe not even put their dishes away if you're rushing to get them off to school. So, but anyway, that's mealtime routine. I was going to say in a nutshell, but that was not a nutshell.
Well, what age do you recommend starting that?
Well, 2, 3, but with a 2-year-old, they should still be in a high chair. They should still be restrained at the table. But by 3, you can start it at 3. That's when the behavior board starts. That's when they have the ability to stop and think before they act, and they can start to understand consequences. Under the age of 3, they do understand consequences, but they have to be consistent corrective actions right in the moment. They can't think about yesterday or what happened 5 minutes ago. It has to be right in the moment. But by 3, they can stop and think, wait a minute, I did mess up, so here's my consequence. And they'll learn as you go. Don't expect them to understand this right away. Don't expect yourself to understand all this right away. It does take time. And I often, when I'm working with clients, they'll often say, yeah, this is going well, that's going well, but what about all the other stuff? And I say, yeah, that will come eventually. But I said, you're learning one step at a time. Everyone wants this magic pill with everything, with dieting, with fitness. Hey, I'm not buff yet. I've been at the gym 3 times so far and I'm not buff yet. It's kind of like that. It takes time. You're investing in tomorrow, but you're getting small steps, small wins along the way. And then you start to change. You start to look at yourself differently as a parent. And so do the kids.
It's just about increasing structure all around.
Yeah, one step at a time, though. You don't address everything in day one. That's ridiculous. I would, because I'm level 10 with what I teach. I'm experienced with all this stuff. But if you're just starting out, you're learning one step at a time. It's like the people, I used to work in gyms too, and people would turn up and they'd go gung-ho every single day, just work out till they puked. And then they'd maybe do that for a week or 3, and then you'd never see them again. They went in too hard, too fast. And it's like that with parenting. Don't try and address everything at once. You're just starting with one behavior at a time. Mealtime routine's a good one. Actually, it's a hard one to do because it just is. I wouldn't do that in week 1.
Okay, so out of the 3, mealtime, bedtime, or morning, which would you start with?
I would start with bedtime for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely, bedtime. It is by far the most effective thing of everything I teach is bed. It is one hell of an ugly night, but it's often just one night.
Okay, I don't think we'll get into specifics on the bedtime and the morning routine, just it'll get a little repetitive, but it's the same concept. It's you're writing it out, kids know it. Is that correct?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess I don't know.
No, the only one that I would do that with would be, I could do maybe bedtime routine, the routine to get them into bed. You could put it in the mirror, tape it up to the mirror. You could do that.
That's
yes.
what I'm referring to.
Yes. Okay. So you're right. I was wrong. You think I'd be used to that by now? Anyway, so yeah, you can do that or not. Depends on the age and whatever suits your family. Morning routine, no. But you could, if you want to, you could write it out, but not so much. They kind of know what to do, but you could write that out too as a reminder, a visual cue. Depends if you want them to do it unaided or if you have to help them with it. If you have to help them with it, you don't have to write anything out. But if they're independent, then you might want to write stuff out. So
At
you're
your
right.
discretion.
You're right.
Okay, so
God,
maybe
I'm sick of saying that. God, I'm usually wrong. If we ever come up against anything, the 2 of us, it's very rare that I'm right.
God, I'm not sick of hearing that.
Because I don't have a filter. I don't think before I speak, whereas she does. So if she says something, this is the way. No, Mom, this is what happened. She's already thought it through. Whereas I'm like, no, I don't know. No, oh yeah, you're right.
No, not always, but
I have no pride or dignity. I don't care.
Okay, maybe we'll get into some of the questions. It might. Okay.
Let's go.
So Elizabeth from the United States. Steaks.
I love United States. Someone's thinking about
Food already.
Okay.
United States, 6 and 3. Just listened to an older podcast where you mentioned not micromanaging your kids. I realize I do this a ton, lots of don't do that, please do that, and so on. It's been getting quite exhausting. Any advice on how to transition from micromanaging to letting them make their own choices? For example, every night we have to tell them each step of their bedtime routine. Pick up toys, brush teeth, get PJs on, use the bathroom, pick a book. How do I transition to telling them, hey, it's bedtime, and they just jump into action on their own?
Well, I'm not sure they're going to jump into action right away. But what I would do is I'd put on the behavior board, put down follow bedtime routine. And then you can do the little notes because you got a 3-year-old, so a note and draw pictures for the little one. So say, okay, bedtime routine starts now. Set a timer, and it has to be a timer they can see. And I would set timers for the first 20 minutes, you have to have a bath. Then, okay, now time for this. Do not micromanage. In other words, if they're not cooperating and not doing it, they've already broken the rule. It already hasn't happened. So the next day you'll have a consequence for them breaking that routine. The hardest part about bedtime routine is the second part, how to keep them in bed. There's no consequence for that. The consequence is you keep walking them back to bed. You don't say anything. You don't look at them, you don't talk to them, you just keep walking them back to bed. It could go on for an hour, 2, 3 hours, depending on the age, but they'll eventually learn that when they said bedtime, they meant it. So don't get out of bed. It's a little bit more involved, but anyway. But there's 2 parts to bedtime routine. The first part is getting ready for bed. The second part is staying in bed once lights are out. So yeah, you can just write down what they need to do or draw pictures, put it in their bedroom, put it, and then have timers going, okay, 20 minutes to brush your teeth and have a bath. And then you want to run the tub. You got a 3-year-old, so they're not independent. So, but if they don't cooperate, that's on them, not on you. The next day, don't ever use a consequence or go to the behavior board at bedtime. You do it the next day. So, okay, just a sec. Well, because you don't want them to go to bed with a consequence, and they can't do the consequence till the next day anyway. Also, what did she say about micromanaging? What you're doing is you're trying to avoid a scene. You want them to do the right thing so you don't have to deal with it. I don't do that. I make sure kids know what's expected of them. Like, that's why I never told my kids what to do. They already knew what was expected of them. We leave at 8 o'clock to go to school. They were ready. They just knew. So why would they? Because I wasn't going to micromanage them. They already knew that from a very young age. So it was up to them, their responsibility to get ready. So when you're micromanaging, you're trying to avoid a scene is what you're doing. You're trying to not have to discipline. And I don't do that. I'm quite happy to do that. I'm not a scene, but I'm quite happy to say, well, you weren't ready in time today. So because of that, here's what we're going to do. So there was a consequence. And they didn't fight me because they already knew that was their responsibility. So you're micromanaging to avoid a scene. You're hoping they'll do the right thing so you don't have to deal with them. That's why parents do that. Like, please don't do the wrong thing. Please do the right thing. Please stop that. They already know they shouldn't hit. I wouldn't say don't hit. If they hit, I say, let's go to the board. Or that's what I teach parents. But if it was me, I didn't use a behavior board. It's just a teaching tool I use. But I would just say, oh, you hit. Okay, here's a consequence. Now, the person you hit gets to play with your favorite game or favorite toy for the next hour or something.
Now, I'm assuming this will be a big transition for the kids too, because if they're used to being told what to do, would you verbalize it and say, I think I've been
No,
micromanaging?
there's no point. That's the mini therapy session stuff. You just go on the board and you put down a follow morning routine you pick one thing per week though. Follow morning routine. That is the sign that things are different. Discussing it, all these mini therapy sessions, discussing how you're going to change your parenting and all, that's for you. That's not for them.
Interesting. Okay, because we've had a question, maybe the kids were older, because we've had a question
Mhm.
before where parents were doing something like micromanaging. I don't think it was specifically, but then your answer was different. You
It would have
said,
been different because the situation would have been different. I'm often hired by people who know each other because they refer me to their friend or their family. And then they'll compare notes and they say, did you get the same Lisa I got? The advice is so different. So I give you general advice on this podcast, but if I'm working with you, I might give you different advice because it depends on your family and your dynamic. So that would have been an older kid and it was probably something that they just expected. The parents were doing something and say, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. It's your responsibility. But these kids are little, they're 3 and 6, and that behavior board is you telling them this is going to be different. That is the sign that things are going to change. I mean, that other example could have been a million different things. I don't know.
I know, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
it's
clarify.
no, but you got to point this out because people might think, well, wait a minute, on another podcast you said to do that. That's right. It would have been a different situation. That's what coaching's all about. It's personal, and I'm giving you general advice, which should cover most stuff. But it's the exceptions that coaching is all. I'm not trying to sell you on coaching. I'm just saying coaching is different. And also, if I get a different question with a different age, and they say for years now we've been doing this, my answer might be different. If it was a 9-year-old, I would say, look, I'm not going to micromanage you anymore. That's your responsibility. I might say that, not with 3 and 6, though. That behavior board is the sign that things are changing.
Okay. Next question. So we
Mhm.
have Marina from the United States. I want to have chores for 9, 7, 5-year-olds. How do I write it out on the calendar?
Okay, I would do the same chore for each kid because they are close in age. They're only 2 years apart. And I would put down on the behavior board, put down follow chore chart. Underneath that, you have the same chore, like make your bed, dirty clothes in the hamper, and put your shoes away in the cubby when you come home within 5 minutes of arriving home. So the bed has to be made before 10 o'clock every morning. That covers weekends if they sleep in. So in a school morning, it has to be done before they leave. So make your bed. Was the other one I said sugar? Make your bed, put your dirty clothes in the hamper so they can't go on the floor, and put your shoes away when you come home within 5 minutes of arriving home. Those are 3 really good chores that all 3 kids can do quite easily. And just pick easy stuff like that. Don't go overboard. Don't say, well, I want them doing this and that. Parents tend to do that. They take on too much and then they tank and they get frustrated and they think, well, that Lisa doesn't know what the heck she's talking about. But you got to do one step at a time. Don't rush it. What are you laughing at?
Didn't clean the grout again.
Hmm?
No, just like putting all these like random chores. Oh, they didn't clean the grout.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that's a fun thing.
I know.
Because I love cleaning. I'm thinking, what's wrong with that? Yeah, no, just make it something really doable. And usually, you see, now all those things that I mentioned, they were personal. They were their things. I'm not asking these kids to go out and power wash your car. Those were all their own personal things. Your dirty clothes, your shoes, your bed. You see? So that's really important too. And then I might get into bigger stuff down the road with the 9-year-old than the 7. Give them a little bit more responsibility. The 9-year-old might have to empty the dishwasher. The 7-year-old might have to load it up. You know what I'm saying. So, but you start out small, master that, and then you can add on. Don't start where you want to end up. Gee, that's a good. Don't start where you want to end up. That's a good one. Was it? You didn't go, yay, that was great, Mom. Yeah, don't start with the end in mind, start with the beginning in mind, because everyone does this, they say, but what about all the other stuff? I'm like, so all we're focused on is that chore chart. That's it. Master that. And you're just developing your own leadership skills with this stuff. That's all you're doing. It's never about the kids. We're never fixing kids here. We're fixing and teaching parents.
I think that from a lot of the questions, it feels like possibly the parents get focused on the chores, but you're saying it's actually not about the chores at all.
There's nothing to do with it. It's about pride too. What have your kids got to be proud of? What are you giving your kids to be proud of? Where's their confidence coming from? Where's their self-esteem coming from? It comes from chores. It comes from treating you well, treating people with respect. It comes from doing or trying your best with things. Where's their pride and self-esteem if they're not doing chores and you're allowing them to treat you poorly? Where's their self-esteem? Has to be in the toilet. Any kid who's telling their parents off has low self-esteem. You can't have high self-esteem and treat your parents like garbage. It's impossible. It just feels bad. They just feel bad about themselves. So your job as a parenting leader is to bring out the best in your kids and increase their self-esteem. You want them to like themselves when they're with you. They don't like themselves if they're hitting you or being snotty, swearing at you. They don't like themselves.
Okay, next question.
Sure.
RP from Canada. Hi, I have 3 boys, one 12, and twins that are 10. I need a family reset. There are so many battles in my home with my kids that do not feel good for anybody, and we keep trying to implement systems that don't just seem to stick or work for us. My question is, how do I reset my family to implement these strategies you suggest without overwhelming anybody and getting everybody to stick to the plan? Any help would be much appreciated.
Okay, that's a big ask. You could check out the boot camp course for that age, by the way. That might help you. It's a 5-week course. Anyway, without that, what I would do is I would start a behavior board. And I would say, look, we're going to have a behavior board. Call it family law. Say, we all need a rule. All of us, mom, dad, the 3 kids, we all need a rule to follow. It could be something that we should start doing or stop doing. And then you say to them, have you got any ideas? Like if you yell, say, our rule should be no yelling. And then say, what do you think your rule could be? Something that you have to nag them about all the time. Start small. I'd probably start with something that you want them to start doing. Because if it's something you want them to stop doing, that's more in the bad behavior department, and that's harder to do. You got 3 kids, they're 10 and 12. You've had 12 years to develop the parenting style you have now. So start small. Say, from now on, I want you to put your shoes in the closet or in the cubby, wherever they belong, within 5 minutes of arriving home. And then say, does that sound fair? But have them have a say in what goes on that board. Then the consequences are, well, you can discuss that with them too. Have them come up with ideas. Because they are older. You've had 12 years of this style of parenting. It's not going to change overnight at all. Plus, you're in the preteen years. And you're right on the cusp of having a teenager. So yeah, you want to bring them in on this stuff.
Something you've talked about a lot is you see parents just trying to take on way too much right at the beginning.
Everyone, I used to work in gyms and I saw it all the time there. And I always said, I'll tell you something. I'll say, you said you want to lose 50 pounds and you want to get fit and toned. And so I saw you here every single day. I told you to come 3 times a week. Don't worry about the food yet. But I told you to come 3 times a week. You've been here every single day. And then I'll say, I just leave it for about a week or so. And then I say, how are you feeling? Oh, everything aches. I'm burnt. I don't know how much longer I can do this. I said, right, go back to 3 times a week. I would say probably 80 to 90% didn't listen to me. And then they just quit after about 3 weeks. 3 weeks is always the mark in fitness. Their bodies just can't take it anymore. It's exactly like that. That's why I say you do that one behavior board and that's it. Everything else you're failing with, that's okay. The kids are learning that, hey, wait a minute. They're doing that behavior board really well. They're paying attention to this. Then you get another behavior board. You're going to end up with 3 of them, 3 weeks, 3 behavior boards, 3 rules for everybody. And the idea is you're starting to get more calm and more confidence, and they're starting to respect you more. And then the course goes into what you do after the 3 behavior boards, because you don't use them forever. You can if you want to, but like I've never used a behavior board. It's a tool, it's a visual tool, and it can help get you organized and focused. So, but yeah, start small and include the kids. Ask them what they think is fair.
I would assume as well, on the kids' perspective, it probably feels good when they get the rule and
Well, there's nothing more fun for a kid than seeing their parents in trouble and having to make amends. You kids loved it with me. So yeah, it's such respect. I often tell this story. I tell a lot of stuff in coaching that I don't repeat here, but this it's a safe one. I used to mentor troubled teens, and my rule was you have to be on time. If not, I go quiet for like 30 seconds, and then they would say to me, "Oh, well, isn't that a reward?" So I loved working with them. Anyway, so I said, "Well, you can't be late, and I'm never late. I can't be late either. If I'm late, I have to buy you lunch, or I have to buy a chocolate bar at lunch, whatever." This was the thing I had going with them. One time, I could see that the kid was standing in front of the window in class watching me and like just waiting for me. And I was at the very other end of the high school. And the principal stopped me to talk. And it was like I had 2 minutes to get to that class. And I looked over at that teenager who had the biggest smile on their face. They thought, I'm going to get a chocolate bar at lunch. So, and I'm wearing a skirt, and it was hot in Australia, stinking hot. So it's really hot. And you're not allowed to run on school grounds. And I'm talking to the principal like this. Yeah. Anyway, okay, I will. Couldn't get rid of this conversation fast enough. And I said, I got to get to class. So finally I got away. I had no time to get to that class, right? I hoofed it. I mean, sweating, huffing, puffing. My skirt is flying. The other classrooms are all watching me because they're like, what the heck is this woman doing? Hoofing it. And I made it into class. I'm sweating like a hog. And I couldn't catch my breath. And then they said, darn it, because they didn't get a chocolate bar because of that, right? But I made it. Now, why would I have done that? What is that? Why did I do that? I could have just walked and bought them a chocolate bar. By the way, I ended up buying them a chocolate bar anyway. But why would I have? Because they were disappointed they didn't get one. So I did. Why would I have done that? What, how does that get me more respect?
Well, it shows that you're trying to follow through with your word.
It shows I care. It's just that simple. You're important to me. I care enough to look like an idiot running down the school grounds, sweating like a hog with my skirt flying behind me because I care. I care. That means everything to them. They told me that. Not specifically about that thing, but they said, we always knew you cared. That's important. Anyway, I was surprised I made that. I'm not a good runner, but I did it.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Andrew from the United States. So, mealtime. We have a 6-year-old boy, 3-year-old girl, and 1-year-old girl. The girl The girls eat just about anything we cook for meal times, and sometimes they don't like what's on the menu, but at least they try. A 6-year-old has a difficult time most mornings with breakfast. We typically have 5 or 6 rotating breakfast meals that we let him choose from the night before. We agree what will be for breakfast the next day, and sure enough, there's a full-blown meltdown almost every morning. Bananas are too mushy, I don't like these eggs, I want yogurt. Do you have any advice on how to transition from wake-ups to breakfast? We never know which 6-year-old we're going to get in the morning, and we want to get past this stage.
Yeah, I don't know if I can help you, and I'll tell you why. Not everyone wakes up well. He might just be what you call a night person. Like that's what he might develop into. If you get Jekyll and Hyde each morning, it has nothing to do with the meal, right? It has to do with his mood. So I can't help you with that other than just ignore it. But you have to get some food into him, so maybe you can pack something up and he can eat it in the car. I don't know. But yeah, I can't help you with that one because he's just waking up in a mood. Also, I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian or anything, so I can't recommend food. But if you know that the stuff sometimes he'll eat and sometimes he won't, I'm suggesting he's just not a morning person. He wakes up cranky some days. Just ignore it. Don't accelerate it. Don't feed it by giving it any attention. Just say, fine, if you're not going to eat, we'll bring it in the car. That's about all I'd say.
So your advice is remaining calm throughout it.
Oh, of course. Anytime you get upset, when they get upset, you're on the low road with them. They just dragged you down. Always stay on the high road. Wait till they join you.
Okay. We have Danielle from the United States. My 5-year-old hates cleaning up his room. We have a rule where there is no TV until the room's cleaned up. My 7-year-old daughter has no trouble with this. My son, however, will sit in his room for hours refusing to do it. I've tried giving incentives like as soon as you've done it, you can watch your movie, or once you're done, we can go to the library, but he sits and throws a fit because it takes too long or he needs help. All he has to do is pick up his toys, but he refuses. I've also tried going in and taking his hands and physically forcing him to pick up the toys and put them away. I remain totally calm and do not yell or even say anything, but that just ends in him screaming at the top of his lungs for a long time after. Do I let him just sit in his room for hours until he finally decides to do it? Or sometimes he'll be in there all day until bedtime, and then we start all over the next day? Or do I force him to do it so it actually gets done?
How on earth are you going to force him to do it? I would never do that. You don't force him to do it. You just say, now I'm wondering what his room looks like. Is it chaotic? Are there too many toys? Have you got a toy rotation system in place? Like my kids only had like 5 toys out at any given time. And I always had an empty bookshelf, a shelf on the bookcase. And that's where all those toys would go. And so when I said clean up your room, they had to whip up a duvet, like just whip it up on the bed. Didn't have to be neat. So they had to make their bed. They had to put their toys away, which took maybe 8-10 seconds, right? Because there's only 5 of them. And then they had to do their laundry. And I did laundry every single day. And there was an empty hanger, an empty space where the rolled up socks went. It was all very organized and extremely easy to do. It was under 3-4 minutes to clean up their bedroom. So I'm wondering, is it too chaotic? Is it too big of an ask? It sounds like he's overwhelmed and you're expecting too much. That's my gut reaction. I could be wrong, but that's my gut reaction. And never force a kid to do something unless you have to take them to school or something. I would cart them out under my arm if I had to. But you don't force a kid to do something like that. It's never going to work.
The interesting thing's that the 7-year-old sister.
Well, maybe she's not as messy. Maybe she doesn't pull out as many toys. Maybe she doesn't make as big of a mess. So they might both have equal amounts of stuff, but maybe he pulls everything out and it's too chaotic after that. And maybe she I love cleaning. So to me, it wouldn't have been a big deal, but I never make a mess. So I always say I don't clean dirty. I maintain clean. So maybe that's what she does. That's her style. Maybe he's not like that. He cleans dirty. So his room's chaotic. Make it more manageable. Take out all the crap so that when he has to clean his room, it takes 2-3 minutes. That's my advice for that. Plus she's 7, she's older.
Okay. We have one final question. So Nicole from the United States. How to address my 2-year-old having separation anxiety at bedtime and causing her to wake up in the middle of the night crying. It's taking hours to get her back to sleep, and then we're up for hours in the night, taking her hours to get her to sleep, and then we're up for hours in the night trying to get her back to sleep.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that separation anxiety so much. I mean, perhaps it is. But anyway, what I do is I have a very specific routine, and then it's a lot of cuddling, a lot of reading books before bed. And I'm assuming she's in a crib. She's not in a bed where she can get out. Either way, you can still, if she's in a crib, you go in there every time she cries for maybe, let her cry for 2 or 3 or 5 minutes initially. And then when she does cry, you never pick her up. You go in there and you pat her on the back and you say, you're okay if she's in a crib, right? You're okay. And then you just leave again. Keep doing that repeatedly. If she's getting up out of a bed, you just keep walking her back to bed. You're okay. I would say, because she's 2. So I would say, you're okay. And then every time after that, just quietly put her back to bed. I don't know if she's in a crib though. It's such an awkward question to answer if I don't know if she's in a crib. I'm going to assume she's in a crib. Okay. So, but the other method, forget what I just said about walking her back to bed. So she's in a crib. You've gone in every 5 minutes or so. If she's still not settling, and you do the same thing in the middle of the night, by the way, you don't get them out of the crib. You just pat her on the back for a few seconds. You're okay. Then what you might do is, if it doesn't work after 3 to 5 times of every 5 minutes you go in there and do that, then you might put a chair beside her cot and you sit in it and look like you're falling asleep, and you give her an arm through the rails. And that's all you're going to give her. You don't look at her. You don't talk to her. You are falling asleep. She'll eventually get so bored she'll fall asleep herself. How can she have separation? If it's not separate, if she's crying, it's not separation anxiety. See what I'm saying? If you're sitting there and she's still screaming, that's not separation anxiety. That's just, I don't want to stay in bed. So also make sure you've got night lights or the galaxy lights or the sound machine, something that kind of can potentially soothe her. But yeah, how does that sound?
I mean, I don't know much about kids in general, so
but you see all the questions. So that's where you're basing your questions on, is what you think other parents are going to ask.
Yeah, I see a lot of questions about bedtime just in general. I'm assuming it's just it's a hard time. I even remember when I was a little kid, I remember I looked in my dark closet at night and I swear I saw some monsters in there. Like, it is.
I remember that. That was a long time ago for me, 60 plus years ago.
It's just one of those things. So I can see that.
But I used to do the monster check. So what I said to my kids is, I always sort of set myself up as mom knows what to do. I was a leader, right? Mom will take care of it. So my mom had that same leadership thing. So I said, look, I'm going to do a monster check. Monsters are terrified of me. If I so much as look under a bed, they're never coming back. So I would do that. I'd look under their bed, look in the closet. No monsters here, no monsters. And because I've looked, they'll never come back. I did that with both my kids. Although my son, I would more likely to tease because he wasn't as nervous as you were. I didn't do this to her. But one time I did open up my son's closet and scream because I said a monster was right there. And then I said he ran away because he saw me. But yeah, I wouldn't have done that with you.
I would have pooped my pants.
She would have absolutely filled her pants. Absolutely. Whereas my son was just, good one, Mom. It's more like me. We both like to be teased.
Yeah, him and I are very different.
Yeah. So I couldn't do that with her. And I didn't. I learned my lesson. Remember that computer thing, that scare thing? She would have been about 8 though. Like, she wasn't really tiny. And you know that computer where you're looking at the car driving down the road and then that horrible witch face screams at you? She was, I thought, oh, I'm never doing anything like that again with her. She was traumatized, like just crying. Whereas my son was like, yay, good one. So,
I remember.
Because we did it with our son first. And then what was going on? What were you guys laughing at? So I said, oh, it's just this really cute, car. And then learned my lesson.
I think it was early 2000s. If you remember, you'll know the exact video we're talking about.
It popped up somewhere a few years ago, popped up in some feed I had. So it's still out there.
And then did you have the hindsight? Then you're like, wow, I showed this to my...
Well, I can't even look at it without feeling guilty. I felt horrible. I didn't know. Like, cause she said, what happened? What happened? I said, oh, okay, I'll show you. Yeah, I didn't.
Let me show my sensitive 8-year-old daughter.
But she wanted to know. She wanted to be in on whatever was going on with her brother because he was 5 years older. So he was so cool, right? So she wanted to be, because we were laughing together, her brother and I. So she wanted to get in on it. She did, not in a good way.
Oh, you've got no sense of humor.
Yeah, I probably said, well, where's your sense of humor? But yeah, my son.
Your brother liked it.
And I said, yeah, that's what I would have said. Well, your brother liked it. So then
I guess we just won't include you the next
that's
time.
right. You're out of it. We'll adopt you out. And I said, my son said, well, I guess you won't be doing that again, eh, Mom? I said, yeah, I learned my lesson.
No, but again, you made amends.
I did. I would have had to have done some. I don't know what I did. I probably had to take her to Disneyland after that one. I don't remember. Probably still
No.
paying for that
I
one.
remember I probably was eating my chocolate cake as my fork was like shivering up to my
I would have got her something for
up
that.
to my mouth
Because if I messed up, and the rule was always, if you mess up, there's a consequence. If I mess up, there's a consequence. So yeah, I would have had to have done something.
It was mutual.
Oh yeah, for sure. Mutual respect. If you're just getting respect from your kids and you don't respect them, if you're not accountable, then you're not a leader. You're a dictator or an authority. That's the old-fashioned way of parenting, like 100 years ago, whatever. Yeah, I don't teach that. I'm accountable too. If you're not accountable, you're not a leader.
Okay, I think we'll end there.
Okay, sounds good. And thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back again talking about parenting next time. Happy parenting. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're ready to dive deeper, check out bratbusters.com to learn more about the behavior board, parenting courses, and private one-on-one coaching with Lisa. If you've enjoyed the show so far, we'd love it if you could take a moment to follow, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more parents just like you. The information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional advice. Lisa is a parenting coach, mom, and grandmother. She is not a licensed psychologist or counselor. Her services do not replace the care of psychologists or other healthcare professionals. For a full disclaimer, please visit bratbusters.com/disclaimer.